Welcome back to Cityline. With me, I have somebody who is engaging, adorable, extremely intelligent, and has some of the best taste that I've ever seen. I also love her to death. She's a fellow Southern Soul sister. I'm talking about Mary Mikel Stump. She is the director of the audience engagement for the Washington State History Museum. Hello, Mary Mikel. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing so well. How are you, Amanda?
Well, I'm doing better today because I get to see you in person as opposed to just sending you little chats on Facebook. I have to say, boy, the Washington State History Museum has been closed due to the pandemic, but you and your team have been growing your programs through a virtual audience. How do people participate in your programs, and do they need to buy a ticket or register? Because I see new content all the time.
Right. First of all, I'm so happy to see you. And I want to say how proud I am of our team at the History Museum and the Historical Society. We closed our doors on March 17th. And by the end of that month, they had figured out how to move all of our programs online. They are amazing. And I think to your question, the way you access the programs are very easy. You can find out what's going on by checking our website, which is washingtonhistory.org, or you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Our programs are done via a Zoom platform, but they're put out to everyone via Facebook. Although you don't have to be a Facebook user to access the programs, you just have to be a Facebook user to put some questions in the chat. But they, because they're virtual, we are able to reach a far wider audience than who can just come to the building. And we're also able to offer those programs for free and not have to charge for access to the building. And so in a lot of ways, we're looking at all the silver linings we can find. And those programs also are evergreen. We keep them online so that people can revisit them. If educators want to use them in the classroom, we can. And so, those are some added benefits.
So speaking of added benefits, you have an interesting lecture coming up on February 25th. February is Black History Month. What can you tell us about this program?
We're really excited about this program. By the time this airs, we will have already offered a program on the history of HipHop in Seattle with Dr. Dowdy Abe. And the program on the 25th is about the pioneering spirit seen in both George Bush, who was the first Black settler here he settled the area around Tumwater, and also the pioneering spirit found in the works of Jacob Lawrence, who is an internationally renowned artist who spent the latter part of his years teaching at the University of Washington, and I would say one of Washington's most treasured sons. And we have some people from some Jacob Lawrence scholars, Leslie King Hammonds and Elizabeth Turner. And then we're also so grateful to Jason Turner, who's from the Northwest African American Museum, who will be in conversation with our lead curator, Gwen Whiting. So, George Bush, not only did he migrate here from Missouri to escape the racism of that area, but he also, his son, William Owen Bush, became the first Black legislator in our state and really made a huge difference in terms of land ownership, who could own land and how much. So this is a phenomenal legacy. And then Jacob Lawrence and George Bush intersect in a commission that we are privileged to hold in our collections that Jacob Lawrence did, a 5-part piece, gouache on paper, in 1972 that really is a narrative work about that migration story that George Bush and his party went through to get to this area.
You know, when you talk about Jacob Lawrence, you have hit my heart light. I had a beautiful opportunity back in the early 1980s when Bellevue Art Museum was just this tiny boutique museum. I got to meet Jacob Lawrence and his beautiful partner, Gwendolyn. And I had always loved Jacob Lawrence, but to talk with him and to crawl inside of him, that's one of those slideshows. When my life ends, I will remember that moment. I want to go back to the hip hop history of hip hop in Seattle. This is something, Mary, that I would have not put with the Washington State History Museum. Tell us about this program, because as you said, by the time this airs, it will have already shown. First off, can we go back and see it, and then tell us what we're going to see?
Absolutely. That's, as I said before, that's really the beauty of doing these programs digitally, because they're here for, you know, all of anybody who wants to see it for all time. And Dr. Dowdy Abe he's a humanities Washington scholar, and he has written this book called Emerald Street, and it really takes a lot of I say he takes the warp of popular culture and music and the weft of urban development and all of the issues there, and weaves together the fabric that we call history. It really takes a lot of different kinds of things happening in society that all converge to make Sir Mix-a-Lot and Macklemore some of the, you know, more tangible exports of hip hop in Seattle in that era. And I think, you know, we're working with a person named Dr. Maurice Dolberry, who's developing some curriculum and an app for us about Black history. And he talks about Sir Mix-a-Lot's song, Posse on Broadway. And he actually uses that song to teach urban development and the things that happen in cities, because he'll take that video, and then through Google mapping, you can go through and see what those very same spots in that video look like now. And so I think it's just a really great access point for a lot of people. It's not just about hip hop, it's about all of the things that make hip hop and rap, and how all those things really converged just perfectly to result in that music.
You know, when I think about history, and when I think about looking at those markers of what they looked like, and I'm assuming it's 1980 because that's when Sir Mix-a-Lot, if you don't know the song he's famous for, boy, do you have some homework to do. It doesn't even look like that anymore up there in Capitol Hill. And speaking of things that don't look like that, COVID has restricted so much our ability to physically visit our beautiful museum. But if all goes well, we're going to cross our fingers, we'll be able to reopen soon. Will we see anything new when we come back to the museum?
Yes, we've really used this downtime being closed to the public to get some things done. We haven't been sitting dormant at all. We have everything from new carpet to 2 new galleries in our permanent exhibition space. One is called Remembrance, and we did a lot of community sourcing with the Japanese American community all over the state of Washington. This is about the impacts and the legacy of Executive Order 9066, which ordered all of our Nisei and Issei citizens to report for incarceration, concentration camps in Minidoka, Tule Lake, and others. And so we tell the story. It's already a complex story, but we tell the story through objects and how those stories and that trauma is passed generationally. We were fortunate enough to get some funding from the Kip Takuta grant from OSPI. So we're having a video made for that and some special curriculum written in addition to the gallery itself. And then we're replacing another one of our permanent exhibition galleries to be, the gallery is called 360. And it refers to the fact that from the imposed or manufactured boundary of Eastern Washington to the coast, the state is 360 miles wide. And so this is a story of all the things of the state that make it, have made it attractive and that have sustained people since time immemorial. But it's also a multiple viewpoint of each of those stories, the stories of the railroad, the stories of the mountains, the stories of the prairies, the stories of the sea, and the story of exploration in general. So I'm really, that should be finished this summer sometime. Remembrance Gallery should open before that. And we're really, really excited to be able to share these new stories and new spaces with our visitors.
Boy, you've said it, you have not been resting on your laurels. I love the symbolism of the 360 because it's not a 180, it's a 360 around again. Mm-hmm. Speaking of documenting our lives, the Historical Society has been collecting digital images related to COVID in our state. Are you also going to be looking for objects for the collection related to COVID?
Yes, we have a lot of digital images because that's what people have sent us, but we also do have some actual objects and artifacts and ephemera that we haven't been able to collect yet because of COVID, but we have asked the people who have come forward to just hold on to those things, and we will gather them. We really are hoping, when you look back at the influenza pandemic of 1918, you don't see a whole lot of objects related to that story because people were just like we are, just trying to hang in there and do our best. And they weren't really that forward thinking about collecting around that topic. So what we've done is we've learned from history, and we really want to gather the everyday objects that tell the story for our communities and really connect us in that way. So we have a section on our website, and it's about this COVID-19 collecting initiative. If anybody out there has anything that they want to share, either in story, object, photograph, letters, we have some eviction notice that, just all kinds of things that tell the story of how this impacted, COVID is the pebble in the pond, but all these other things are the ripple effects that will tell the story years from now when people want to make sense of it. So we really would love to hear from our community and see how that manifested itself in the individual lives that comprise it.
We talk about things that mark time. I mentioned that you and I are engaged on Facebook, and I was wondering if your Facebook memory showed you what it showed me. A year ago, little black dress, and I loved the memory that popped up. I also grieved the loss of not being able to be in the museum and also physically see all of those beautiful people. So my last question for you is, how can I find out about your great virtual programs, and then also the exhibitions for when the museum does reopen?
We have a brand new, beautiful website that our Director of Marketing Communications, Juliana Verbort, works tirelessly on. And so I think, the best way to connect to us is to check our website. And like I said, also follow us on social media, Facebook, either with the Washington State Historical Society or the Washington State History Museum. That's both us. And also on Instagram. And we do also have a Twitter presence, but we're more active on Facebook and Instagram because those are storytelling platforms. And it's hard to limit museum people to just a few characters. WashingtonHistory.org, and Juliana and her team do a great job of keeping that updated.
Mary Mikel Stump, it's always a pleasure and a privilege to be in your presence. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Take care of you and your precious family. And when I get to see you in person again, it's going to be a big squeal, a big low sugar, and a big hug.
Well, listen, Amanda, I want to say one thing, and I think I can speak for myself and all the other people who watch you. Thank you for really kind of holding us together, not just in Cityline, but on all the other virtual programs that you've been doing. You've been a real part of my COVID experience because I have felt connected to the community through a lot of the things that you're doing. And so I just want to give you a shout out and appreciation for that.
Well, thank you so much. And you cannot make the host cry. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for being here. And we have much more to come on Cityline. So don't go away. I'm going to dry my tears. We'll be right back.